Greetings. Today I'm going to talk about the balloon or UFO. We don't know if it's a balloon yet. There's no evidence that was shot down over Prudhoe Bay, Alaska Thursday night by the U.S. military, probably the Air Force. This is an incident that I have way more questions than answers. And when you look at what's being reported by traditional media outlets right now, it's a lot of the same thing. Basically, just a repeat of the previous balloon that was shot down off the east coast of the United States. This is very different than that. And I want to start with explaining or talking through some of those differences from a geographical perspective. So, this is mostly going to be a mapping conversation with a lot more, and a geography conversation with a lot more questions than answers. So this is Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, looking at it in Google Earth Pro, and we can see that it's way up north. It's the northernmost. It's one of the northernmost places on the Alaskan state, and it's pretty far north. It's just right at the top of the North American continent. What does that mean? Being close to the northern pole, this place is going to be very cold in the winter. All these lakes are going to be frozen. We can also see a river flowing north into the ocean. So this is an ocean community, and it's an oil community. So a little bit of history of this area is that in the 1970s, a pipeline and a road was built from Fairbanks, Alaska, north to this oil field so that oil could be moved to the other side of Alaska, which is Valdez, where it could be put on container ships and taken to ports around the world, mostly the United States, I want to say, like Seattle and California Bay Area, actually. So that's a little bit of the history of this region. Now, if within the last like 50 years or so, one thing to note is that if this oil field wasn't here, this road wouldn't be here. So much of Alaska is just completely roadless. And especially what we call the bush areas, these areas that are just way out, very, very rural. So, looking at this from a latitude and longitude perspective, we can see that we're just south of 71 degrees north, so like upper 60s, and we can see this Arctic Circle here coming in the early 60s in the northern latitudes. And everything north of this Arctic Circle, this line geographers have put over the poles, which is imaginary, signifies places that go completely dark in their winter for a period of time. And this area is just coming out of that. So daylight hours are around 6 hours right now in this region. And we do a quick measurement here. We can see that Prudhoe Bay, as the crow flies, is about 250 miles or 407 kilometers from this Arctic Circle, approximately. So what does that mean? That means dark winter for 2-3 months a year. If you live in this area and you want to comment below on what it's like to live in this area, please do. Okay, next thing I want to look at, and I'm not as good at some, is tracking ADS-B exchange data, but it's the flight, in general. What this is this a website where any commercial or private flight, they're going to be tracking their location using GPS technology, and that goes into that, that's publicly available. So we can see that here. Now, this balloon wouldn't necessarily show up. Isn't probably not going to show up here. And a military aircraft that's shooting it down is probably not going to show up either. And it is possible that balloon could be on radar, could be broadcasting this. I mean, it's if it was a balloon from for a nation like China, it's definitely communicating home through radio frequencies of some sort. So whether that's going to show up on the ADSB exchange, I don't know. But I did tinker around, didn't find anything promising. So, but I chose to include this just in case viewers who are into this kind of investigative open source reporting have a better skill set on this specific site than I do. Let me know in the comments below if there's a search parameter or a way you found any data for this region between Thursday night and Friday morning this week that shows a military aircraft or a balloon on radar. So that's the ADSB exchange portion of this video. Here's a quick shot of an airplane landing at the airport in Deadhorse around sunrise or sunset, and sometimes those go for a while. Some more clips from a YouTube channel, and I would definitely check this out. You can see the name in the title there of what Deadhorse looks like in the winter. This is the inside of like their general grocery store, post office. Again, this is a very small community, so this is like the closest thing to like a social outlet in that community that's publicly accessible. So these oil field camps are not tourist destinations. They're private, and you have to work for the oil company to access those. There's also Yupik people who live in these areas, and they have houses, and there's public schools or a public school in different buildings, so that's there. So looking at this tundra and sea ice, though, we have a better visualization of the type of landscape this balloon or UFO would have landed on after being shot down. So here's a layer in Gaia GPS that shows an aviation chart for people who are flying airplanes over this area. And now we're going to switch to the USGS topographic map layer. This layer shows, as we zoom in, a pretty flat landscape that's been carved by glaciers. And we can see the Prudhoe Bay inlet and outlet, some rivers, a lot of lakes on this landscape. And because it's so flat, if it's frozen like it is in the wintertime, you could easily drive snow machine equipment like a snowmobile across it to collect crash debris from a balloon or UFO that was shot down over this landscape. Next, I want to take a step back in time to look at the weather from the time frame when the balloon was shot down in this area. Why don't we start by looking at the sea ice concentration off the North Slope of Alaska, which shows, according to this legend, a 9/10 concentration, which is the max with their conditional formatting. So white would be ice-free, green would be really shallow sea ice, and then red's, pretty thick sea ice. Orange would be old sea ice. So in this case, there is a ton of ice off this coast. So according to, the media and news outlets that are reporting on this UFO/balloon being shot down, it was shot down about 10 miles off the coast, which would put it in over this frozen ocean that a snow machine could be driven over. Looking at these ocean temperatures, we can see that everything's well below freezing. So we know that this balloon, unlike the last one, wouldn't sink into a liquid. It would just sit on a solid hard surface. If you live in Deadhorse and you're watching this, please put in the comments below if you see military snow machines driving out under the frozen ocean, ice pack, looking for this object that they shot down. Or please post any photos or videos you have if you're driving out there on a snow machine. They could help public learn more about this mysterious incident.
This is the National Weather Service in Anchorage, Alaska, with Thursday's Alaska statewide weather. Low pressure brought gusty winds and rain, heaviest along the southern panhandle today. Craig picked up 0.8 of an inch of precipitation during the day today, while Cake had 0.7 of an inch, as well as Heidelberg and Ketchikan. Winds gusted to 55 miles per hour at Cape Decision and anywhere from 30 to 45 miles an hour over the central and southern inner channels. An intense storm brought high wind warnings to the central Aleutians today, and that'll continue for tonight for Adak and Atka until 7 p.m. for northeast winds gusting to 75 miles per hour. So far, Nikolsky on Unimak Islands had a peak wind gust of 84 miles per hour. St. George, about 60 miles an hour, and 55 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts occurred around Unalaska and Dutch Harbor. For tonight, blizzard warning out for tonight until noon tomorrow for the Pribilof Islands. For northeast winds gusting to 60 miles an hour and additional snows creating whiteout conditions at times through that time frame. Otherwise, again, the high wind warning ends over the central Aleutians this evening. Otherwise, it'll be fair across southern Alaska. And then for Friday, look for areas of light snow over the Arctic coast and North Slope areas into the eastern Brooks Range, and some light snow along with some gusty north winds up to 30 to 40 miles an hour through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island. Low pressure tracks to the Alaska Peninsula, and the front will spread rain and snow and gusty winds to Kodiak Island. Wind, rain, and snow will increase along the North Gulf Coast. Winter weather advisories are out for the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, the lower Yukon Valley, Bristol Bay area, and for the Kenai Peninsula as that system moves in. And then for Saturday, look for areas of snow over the western interior from Kotzebue Sound southward to Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, with colder temperatures coming southward into the northern Bering Sea. Winds will gust anywhere from 25 to 40 miles an hour, strongest through the Bering Strait. Lighter winds are in store for the Aleutians and southern Bering Sea, with winds gusting to 45 miles an hour for the Alaska Peninsula, with snow showers across the entire region. With Alaska statewide weather, I'm David Percy.
Some key takeaways have from that weather report is that for the North Slope region specifically, you're looking at quite a bit of wind and blowing snow, and then short hours of daylight. So in terms of recovery, those are pretty tough conditions. You got about 6 hours a day to work with visible light and a lot of wind and blowing snow well below freezing temperatures. Lastly, we're assuming this balloon was launched from China somewhere. I'm guessing it took a track north over the Earth and then entered the North American continent right there at Dead Horse and was basically shot down right away. And that's much different than the last one, where it was shot down as it exited the... This is the opposite of the last incident, where in the last balloon shoot down, that happened as the balloon had already drifted completely across the continent and was shot down right after it left the continent. Both of these are the same in the sense that they were shot down over ocean. Just one, with this one, the ocean's frozen in the region it was shot down over. In any case, that's all I got for you today. If you have more information on this that you think would be helpful to better understand this story that's still evolving, or primary research material we could look into to understand it better, please put that in the comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you around.